Hi, this is Kelsey with Math Sisters. Today I'm going to be dealing with cube roots. I just earlier made a video for square roots and perfect squares. So if you want to look back before you move on to cube roots. Break it down, parts of a radical. We have a radical sign, and it could be a square root with an imaginary number sitting outside, f2. And then we also have now cube roots. And I'm going to put my radicade today as numbers and as variables. It's really good to know your perfect cubes to make it easier on yourself. A perfect cube would be 1 because 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. The cube root of 8 is 2, so 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. That's why it's a perfect cube. Cube root of 27 is 3, 3 times 3 times 3. Cube root of 64, 4 times 4 times 4. So all of these, especially those top maybe 6 right there, are really good to know. Now I'm going to start out by just thinking of the cube root of 8. We know that is 2 because I just talked about it, but if I would just show you how to break it down, think of what multiplies to give you 8. 4 times 2, 2 times 2. Now in the past when you're doing square root you wanted 2 numbers. Now you have a cube root, so you want 3 numbers. So you have 3 2's. So think about those being multiplied on the inside. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So cube root of 8 is 2. Now this is new for us, a cube root of a negative 8. In Algebra 1, a negative inside a root radical would have been no solution. In Algebra 2, it could maybe be an imaginary number. But when it's dealing with cube root, that means that you can think of what multiplies to give you negative 8. And that would be negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. So the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. So when I see a negative inside of a cube root, automatically I always pop it out right away. So those are just some basic ones right there. Already lost my eraser. Okay, now going on to the next example would be 4 cube root of 27. Cube root. I have a sloppy handwriting here. Now, looking at this, you know the cube root of 27 is perfect cube. Cube root of 27 is 3. Now, if you forget that, you could just break it down. 9 times 3, a lot of people forget 3 times 3 when they're new to it. You have 3 numbers. They're all the same. So our cube root of 27 is 3. Now there's a 4 already sitting out there, so in the past I told you, when in doubt, multiply with radicals. So 3 times 4 is now 12. And that is my answer right there. Moving on to the next one right here, cube root of 54. Well, what multiplies to give you 54? That would be 9 and 6, 3 and 3, 2 and 3. We need 3 numbers. Well, we have 3 3's here. So 3 comes out. We have a cube root of what's left over. We already used the 9, we already used the 6, so we have a 2 left over. So my answer is 3 cube root of 2. Now I'm going to throw some variables in there for you guys. We have 4 cube root of 32 x to the 6th, y to the 7th. Now right here, we don't know the cube root of 32. It's not a perfect cube, so I'm going to break it down. 8 times 4. And you could know the cube root of 8 and think of that right away, but a lot of people forget that, so it's just easier for a lot of people just to break it all the way down. I always say in my classroom, break it down. 2 and 2, 2 and 2. So we need 3 numbers here that are the same. We have 3 2's, and we only have 2 left over, so we don't have those 3 of those. So what is popping out is a 2, because that represents 8 right here, and the cube root of 8 is 2. So we're popping out a 2. 2 times 4, since 4 is sitting out there, it's affecting it. 2 times 4 is 8, and we have a leftover 2. Okay. Now I would always leave some room here because we're dealing with variables, so there are going to be some leftovers on the inside as well. 3 goes into 6 2 times. That's how you can deal with variables. 3 goes into 7 how many times? Well, 3 times 2 is 6, so I know it goes in there 2 times. And how many leftovers are there? And there would be 1. Now, before going to that, I should have said, when you think of a radical, if you've been in Algebra 2 maybe for a while, you know that a cube root is the same thing as 1/3 power. So cube root is the same thing as 1/3 power. So 6 times 1/3 is 2, and that's why it's what it really is in math. But I think it's easier for my kids in class. They like when I do 3 goes into 6 2 times. Going on to another example, trying to mix it up for you guys. Let's throw in a negative now. So 3 negative 162 p to the 8th, q to the 9th, and r. Now, I told you guys earlier, anytime you see a negative, you just pop out the negative, because a negative times negative times negative is a negative. So, I'm going to pop out my negative there first. I'm going to put my cube root there because I always forget about that. Not a huge deal, but some teachers get really picky on that part right there. Okay, it's really important. So what multiplies to give you 162? And that would be 81 and 2. What breaks down to be 81? 9 and 9. 3 and 3. 3 and 3. So we have 3 3s. So that means 3 is popping out. And we have a leftover 3 and a leftover 2. So that would give us 6 on the inside. 3 goes into 8 how many times? And we would say 2. And how many leftovers would I have? Well, 3 times 2 is 6. And I had 8, so 8 minus 6 is 2. So I'd have 2 left over. 3 goes into 9 3 times evenly. So that means I would just have a 3 outside. And then can 3 go into what imaginary numbers here? And that would be a 1. 3 cannot go into 1, so I would just leave it inside. And I am done with that one. Last example right here for you guys. Is cube root of a negative 56 x to the 7 y to the 12th. And I'm going to throw a number out there real quick. So let's break down 56. What multiplies to give you 56? So just think about what multiplies to give you 56, and that would be 8 and 7. What multiplies to give you 8? 4 and 2, 2 and 2. So we have 3 pairs of 2's. And that makes sense because the cube root of 8 is 2. So we have 2 coming out, but there's already a 4 there, and it would be now a positive. Now just remember, this was a negative inside, so I told you guys to pop out that negative right away. 3 goes into 7 2 times with 1 left over, because 3 times 2 is 6, 7 minus 6 is 1, and 3 goes into 12 4 times. And that is all for today. Thanks for watching. This is Kelsey from Math Sisters.